would be untrue. You know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. The time to hesitate is through. No time to wallow in the mire. Try now, we can only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. is through. No time to wallow in the mire. Try now, we can only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. Yeah. You know that it will be untrue. You know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on 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 fire.
Welcome to Fountain Street Church and to this memorial service for Scott Jared Arkovitz. From the prophets of old and from our own life's experience, we've come to know that for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to be born and a time to die. This is a time we do not want, but this season is upon us. But yet we come to celebrate, to give thanks for Scott's life, for the joy he brought to each of you, for the wonderful memories and the good times. Every life is full of yin and yang, ups and downs, good and bad. We celebrate the good, and we give thanks for Scott's life. And so now we begin the service with Rabbi Michael Shaddock.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will always remember Scott. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will always remember Scott. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will always remember Scott. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will always remember Scott. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will always remember Scott. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will always remember Scott. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will always remember Scott. When we have joys that we yearn to share, we'll always remember our beloved Scotty. So long as we live, he too will live. He is part of us as we remember him. In his pain, the Bible tells us that Job cried out these words. He said, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mivorach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. We Jews are an ancient people. We are far too well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow and sadness are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us this, that a good name, a kind soul, a warm person, all of these things endure in our memory, and there is strength in faith. With Job, we say these words, Adonai Natan, God, you have given. You gave us a loved one who will never be forgotten. And so for all that was good and all that was enduring in his life, we offer to you the deepest thanks of our hearts. And we say, Adonai Lakach, God, you have taken away. We pray this night for strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and love as we say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mivorach. Blessed be the name of God, now and forever. Amen.
The pure and unconditional love I have for my Scotty boy, as I affectionately call him, can be best expressed through this simple little children's book I gave him on Valentine's Day when he was 17. He had it displayed on the top shelf of a bookcase in his bedroom. I think he was proud to be a mama's boy, and I am eternally proud to be his mom. This book is for Scotty boy, with love, Mom, February 14, 2007. How do I love you? Let me count the ways. I love you on your very best and very worst of days. I love to see you laughing and dancing in the rain, and even when you lose your shoes, I love you just the same. I love to hear you singing. I love to hear you smile. I love the way you take each day in your own unhurried style. I'm happy when you're happy, and I'm sorry when you're sad. And even though it may not show, I love you when you're bad. How do I love you? Well, now, let me see. I love the way you act so brave when you fall and hurt your knee. I love to watch you sleeping, tucked away in pleasant dreams. I love to hear you whisper all your giant plans and schemes. I love the way you wear your pants with the front part in the back. And the way you walk around sometimes with your head inside a sack. I love to see you deep in thought. I love to watch you play. And though I'm sure you'll never know, I love you more each day. How do I love you? It's impossible to say. For if I had 1,000,000 days and time enough for all the praise, I couldn't tell you all the ways I love you.
I'm Scott's Uncle Bobby. I had a connection with Scott that will never be broken. It started back when he was just a young boy, about 4. My sister Laurie put her trust in me to take my boy to the Field of Dreams, a playground in Salem, New Hampshire, but be careful. This was the first child I was ever responsible for. So I drove him to the park a few miles away. As I carefully pushed him on the tire swing, Scott insisted on going faster. So I went a little faster, he said. So of course, being the same thrill seeker as Scott, I pushed him even faster. All of a sudden, he flew off and landed on his face. After we both laughed it off, I took him home just a little scraped, but I felt terrible, and I had to face my sister who thought the scars would last a lifetime. Well, the scars didn't, but the bond between Scott and I did. A few years later, when Laurie finally trusted me again, Scott and I had another adventure together. I convinced Laurie to send Scott alone down to Florida to stay with me for about a week. I remember jet skiing around Charlotte Harbor. Once again, we wanted to go as fast as we could, and we did, laughing all the way. We also went to Busch Gardens. I remember Scott was always smiling, as curious as me about everything. He would entertain me with his joking and impersonations. We had so much fun. When I arrived in Grand Rapids back in October, one of the first things Scott said to me was that we were kindred spirits, and our bond continued. We watched movies together, laughed at funny videos like Bab's lip reading, and Scott introduced me to hot dog humor. We stayed up till the wee hours of the night, only until my sister asked us to tone it down. We were more like brothers. I can still hear Billy Bob Thornton and Scott's sling bait impression. He always made me laugh. I'm going to miss my laughing buddy. I love you, Scott.
I'm Chris Siegel. This is my husband, Doug. Scott wasn't just our son Nathan's friend, he was a family friend. Everyone in my family enjoyed spending time with him and talking with him. I don't need to tell you that he was brilliantly funny. I'm sure that every one of us in this room can easily bring to mind times when he made us laugh. And I'm sure every speaker tonight will talk about his quick wit. But in addition to Scott's humor, his sweetness and kindness always came through. A few weeks ago, I was sick, and out of the blue, Scott texted me his get well wishes. He said, quote, "Hey, Chris, Nathan told me you weren't feeling too well. I hope you feel better and have a speedy recovery. If the Siegel boys aren't taking good care of you, let me know and I'll come to the rescue." He was such a sweet pea. You raised that boy well. Even though his time with us was much too short, we were all so very lucky to have known him.
Our son Nathan is in Israel right now and can't be here today, but he sends his love and a few words to share with Scotty's family. I had intended and tried to prepare something about Scotty myself in my own words, but could never come close to the words expressed by Nathan. So I'm going to tell you what Nathan had to say. First, the things that Nathan wishes he could have told Scotty in Nathan's words. I wish that I had told him that I cared about him very much, that I was worried about him, and that I wished he took better care of himself. I wish that I had told Scotty that he was family. I don't doubt that he would have cleverly deflected and said something to embarrass me and make me laugh at the same time, but I regret not letting him know. Nathan also described Scotty. Scotty was the one I bet on. The one person that would come to mind when people spoke of their friends that would make it one day. The ones with the intangible quality about them. The ones that were universally recognized as one of a kind no matter where they were at in life. I wish that I could see what he would have become, because it would have been something truly unique and fantastic. I love you, Scotty.
Hi, I'm Harry Koffel, and a great honor for me is working with young actors at East Grand Rapids High School. A few years ago, I directed Scott in a production of Gene Shepard's American classic, A Christmas Story. Most of us know it as the story of Ralphie and his quest for an official Red Ryder carbine-action 200-shot model range air rifle. That's not what it's about for me. In 2006, I was a new dad, and the part of the play that resonated me was Ralphie's father. The Depression-era dad was the perfect comedic character, the master of the slow burn. Scott was a riot in that role, whether pounding on the Parker family furnace or diving headfirst into the crate full of his deservedly won major award. Even better was poor Scotty having to memorize long streams of fake phonetic curses without actually swearing. Knowing Scott, you know I sweated about him accidentally dropping a real bomb every night, but he never let me down. I was fortunate to work with Scott on other productions, but Mr. Parker is the character that I remember him best for. Explosively humorous, delightfully crass, physically ballistic, but with a heart of gold that could fill up a stage and warm up everyone in a theater. The conversation I remember having with Scott about the role was that it was important to let the audience know that Mr. Parker, the old man, was a guy who really worked hard to give both of his boys the best Christmas ever. See, for a drama teacher, getting a kid to open his heart on the stage is sometimes a challenging proposition. This was not true for Scott. He wore his heart on the outside for everyone to see. When I connected with Scott outside of drama rehearsals and productions, I was glad to see that he lived that way as well.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are honored to speak in commemoration of our dear friend Scotty. We are so lucky to have been among some of Scotty's closest girlfriends. As we know, Scotty loved to be surrounded by beautiful women. Sharing in his company for many years has left us with countless wonderful memories. Scotty lit up a room. He never let a smile escape your face. He was our comedian, our mini John Belushi. We could always count on Scott to pioneer uniquely hilarious trends and introduce us to fun new music and dances. Scotty loved dancing. When we were 17, Scotty introduced us to Beyonce's Single Ladies music video. His obsession with Beyonce's moves inspired us to learn the dance for Scotty's 19th birthday party. We practiced for days in heels and gym clothes, watching hours of YouTube's tutorials and attempting to perfect the moves. But by the end of the night, Scotty was still able to move his hips better than anyone. He was the life of the party, a natural on the dance floor. That same year, while Scott was attending Columbia College in Chicago, we were able to visit him for our spring break. Upon arrival, we were welcomed by Scott's numerous new friends who treated him not unlike our friends back home. It came as no surprise that Scott was the funniest guy around, and everyone he met was drawn to him. He radiated a contagious energy, livening even the dullest moments. Scotty's personality was eclectic. He fit in with people of all kinds. Nothing was weird to Scott. You could be 100% yourself with no judgment being passed. Just don't mention you like gas station hot dogs. Take it from me, Scott was the first to speak his mind and let you know it was trashy. However, he made it known that those quirks are what made him love you that much more.
In Mr. Cam Schulte's Experiences in Living course, we would often listen to classic rock and albums and had to guess the band and the song. The day our teacher chose to play the Beatles, Scott and I competed neck and neck to get the most right. Scott and I agreed, looking back, that was the day we became great friends. As we continued to grow closer, I noticed myself beginning to pick up on his many Scottisms. Supposedly, a Scottism is a Pacific pronunciation or turn of a phrase, a commonplace word or saying that was turned into something he made unrecognizably hilarious, in a way only Scott could manage to do. We are so proud of Scotty. Despite his struggles, he was able to accomplish so much in his life. He wrote an amazing thesis on interpersonal communication, emphasizing the importance of face-to-face interactions. He completed an internship at Wood TVA and graduated college. We all knew of his super senior status at a multitude of universities. Scott is a great inspiration to achieve our own dreams in our educations. Scott was so cool. Emily and I were talking about how we would stay cool without Scott here. Without Scotty's latest dance moves, diverse musical suggestions, and Scottisms, it seems nearly impossible. But as a part of us dies with you, parts of you live forever in us. There are no amount of words that can do Scott justice and describe the way it feels to lose him. He will always be with us through our memories and in our hearts. We are so lucky to have known him. This time apart cannot diminish the love that we will continue to share. In the end, Scott's life and impact on us is much stronger than death.
Okay. This is a quote from one of Scott's favorite books, Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins. Our individuality is all that we have. There are those who barter it for security, those who repress it for what they believe is the betterment of the whole society. But blessed in the twinkle of the morning star is the one who nurtures it and rides it in grace and love and wit, from peculiar station to peculiar station along life's bittersweet route. My name is Taylor Kiefer, and once upon a time I was Scotty's girlfriend and remained close friends with him since then. And this is what I've written in honor of him. Over the past few days, I've had moments of clarity. Collect pictures, check. Call Lori, check. Respond to text meaningfully because the support I have received and that we have all given each other is invaluable, check. And then I remember why I am doing these things and looking at old letters and mementos, and I'm overcome with shock, grief, and things go still. Our friend was so much more than a friend to us, a family member that was so much more than a family member. His friends were his family, and his family meant more to him than a word can express. Our best understanding of Scott amounts to the fact that his love was unconditional and free of judgment. He lived to entertain and thrived on the laughter of his loved ones and whoever else he could win over with his jokes and impressions. His spot on Keaton comes to mind. And you would be hard-pressed to find a single soul that wasn't completely enamored by Scotty after spending even a few moments in a room with him. Scott graduated recently, one of his greatest accomplishments. His thesis, for those who don't know, concerned communication in the digital age and the effects it has had on us all. As we spend more and more time in the presence of each other with attention turned to glowing screens, we lose the true focus and drive in our lives. Those face-to-face interactions, those moments of true understanding and intent to listen, interpret, and empathize with each other. Scott wanted to redirect us to that simpler time, one that is not far in our past, the days of our childhood when make-believe and stories grasped our attention and opened our minds, rather than becoming engrossed in group text gossip and refreshed hashtags. Now I'll step off my soapbox, but I had to do that for you, kid. It's a mind-numbing loss too soon, so much potential, the greatest guy we ever knew. No, all the cliches apply here. It's just true. But Scott is someone who is truly unique. No cliche dare touch him. He changed our lives, gave us a new perspective, had a strong idea of right and wrong, and strive for that every day. He really gave everything he could, and I fiercely believe that. I don't care, although of course I do, who you are, or how close you were, or how long you knew him. You made an impact on his life, just as he did in yours. While looking through keepsakes this past week, I came across his reading class journal from when he was 12. I savored every word, noting that he described most of his dinners as fabulous, worried about his mother's sciatic nerve, and grappled with annoyances such as, and I quote, "I don't understand why Haley needs to be with friends all the time, for heaven's sake." But what struck me the most is how he would repeatedly acknowledge his friends of his and congratulate their accomplishments, no matter what their size. David was commended for having an exceptionally good narrative essay. Corey was recognized as a funny, really funky guy with big ears for Halloween. John, now known as Jiffer, was praised for his reading of the Torah at his bar mitzvah. He took notice of good people, and that is why we took notice of him and held tight. To his family, you were amazing, the best support system he could have ever hoped for, providers of wisdom and a basis for his wit, intellect, and charm. To his friends, you helped those traits grow and bloom and nurtured them in a way that caused an extraordinary wild garden of colorful lust and zest for life. And thank you, Scotty, for teaching me that the space a heart holds for the love of another knows infinite capacity. I learned so much with you. I can safely say I'm probably about to pass out from a combination of usual public speaking anxieties and overwhelming sadness, so I'm going to wrap this up. I will end on this note, though. We must be good to each other and be present, not only spend our time together, but share our time together. And in that time, keep Scott here with us through the sharing of thousands of memories and dance parties to the New Jack Swing and pop music that he was so fond of. New Edition and Shakira comes to mind. We adore you, Scotty, and love you.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Bach, but most of you know me as Jiffer. It's quite hard for me to be up here today to be talking about the passing of my oldest and closest friend, Scotty Scooter Arkowitz. But as his true Jewish brother, I'm obligated to share our deep, long-lived religious and spiritual friendship. The two of us first met at Camp Shalom when we were 4, way back in the good old Camp Chai days. My father, Bert, was the music director for the Jewish summer camp. Every day he would lead us in singing various Jewish songs and prayers, while Scotty and I would always be sitting together and singing as loud as we could and goofing around as usual. Camp Shalom served as the foundation for our connection to the Jewish faith and bound our strong friendship for years to come. The two of us grew up in East Grand Rapids, and even though we went to different elementary schools, I was a Breton Bulldog and he was a wealthy wizard. That small difference never separated our friendship as Jewish brothers. Mainly because we were one of 9 Jewish kids in town and we always knew we kind of had to stick together. On my birthday, it became a tradition to have a big sleepover birthday party with all my close friends. We would eat pizza, play Sega Genesis, drink Jolt to stay up all night, and watch movies. Most notably, the annual viewing of the original Transformers, the movie, and other classics such as Animal House and Beverly Hills Cop 3. Scotty and I were infamous on sleepovers for being a part of the All-Nighter Club, always being the last men standing and watching the sunrise in the morning before hitting the hay. Oi, those were the days. Oh boy, did Scotty love to dance. He had moves like Michael Jackson with the finesse of Chris Farley, and even though Scotty was a big boy, he was very light on his feet, like a young Jackie Gleason. I'm unaware what flawed Gentile beliefs spread the false propaganda that Jews can't dance and don't have rhythm, because because at every high school dance, it was the Jew crew shredding on the dance floor. We were proof that Jews really can dance, or like a semi-truck with no brakes, you couldn't get us to stop. Oh, the dance-offs we had. You just can't forget stuff like that. He had this effect on people that would only bring smiles and joy. He could warm even the coldest heart with his positive attitude and unforgettable smile. Most people only had to meet him just once and found it quite impossible to forget a person with his wonderfully charming and welcoming personality. One of the most memorable experiences in our lives was our trip to Israel. We went through confirmation and finished Sunday school at Temple Emmanuel in 2006. We earned free passes to go on Birthright, which we chose to make the Mecca in the summer of 2011. When we were both 21, we first traveled to New York, where we'd meet up with the young Jewish kids across the U.S. that we'd be spending the next 10 days in paradise with. Scotty, one of our group leaders, and I were the only ones representing the great state of Michigan. I'm really not trying to sound smug, but the two boys in Grand Rapids really were the life of the party at all times. Not one moment was complete without a joke from us the entire trip. When we finally arrived in Israel and boarded our tour bus, where we'd be spending most of our trip traveling all around Israel, I had a fond memory of our tour guide, Shahar, playing this icebreaker interview game to get kids to step up and introduce ourselves, and to be asked a list of random questions so people could get to know us better. When he asked for a volunteer, obviously our boy Scotty raised his hand and got the party started. Shahar's first odd question to Scott was, if you could be any kitchen utensil, what would you be? Without hesitation, Scotty replies, a spatula, because I want to have raw meat on me all the time. Everyone just burst into laughter and knew that Scotty was, without a question, a comedic genius and would bring nothing but laughter and smiles. Another fond memory of the Israel trip was our 5-hour hike up and down Mount Masada. Mid-July, hottest day of the year. And as we all know, our boy Scotty Too Hottie, he was just rolling with sweat up and down that steep mountain. As we made our way back to the comfort of our tour bus and blasting air conditioning, I'll never forget what Scotty said when he stepped onto the bus. Feeling very proud, he raised his arms and clearly exclaims, "See? Fat people can win too." There was a rolling applause from everyone on the bus for Scott's accomplishment. I'll never forget the joy in his face and how he warmed everyone's heart day in, day out of that trip. Some people refer to Scott as having a lot of pizzazz, others to having a lot of moxie, but me, as one of his closest friends, would say, that kid sure had a lot of chutzpah. It's truly a shame that God chose to take one of his greatest creations away from the world, but Scott's spirit will live on in the hearts of the people who loved him most. Ideally, it hurts that we won't get to see him reach his final form, but then again, the way he lived his life to the fullest, maybe he was always there. Until we meet again, my Jewish brother, when we walk side by side into the land of Hashem, your spirit will live on, Jew Crew for life.
Good job, Jiffer. All right, before I say what I have written, I want to say that everybody so far has done a great job, and I'm sure you guys will. Especially Mrs. Siegel. I'm glad you read a text message from him because I can't read anything to all of you that he's sent me due to language. I always thought that one day I would be speaking about Scotty to a packed house similar to this, but I imagined myself introducing him at his Lifetime Achievement Award or something like that. So that's how I'm going to treat this. Scott was the Joliet Jake to my Elwood. For those of you who don't know, that was a Blues Brothers reference. Growing up, I watched Blues Brothers incessantly with my real brothers, Connor and Nick. Connor and I would pretend we were Jake and Elwood, but when I first started hanging out with Scotty, it was obvious he would replace Connor as my real blues brother. Connor couldn't really be that upset. Scott had the enigmatic presence of John Belushi, not to mention his spitting image. Our blues brother bond grew stronger the more we hung out and culminated on Halloween of 2008 when we came in second place dressed as Jake and Elwood in a costume contest at a music festival. The guy who won first place was dressed as Bob Dylan and played Bob Dylan songs, so we had no chance. We vowed to come back the following year in a replica bluesmobile with our own makeshift band in tow. We talked about getting up on stage and performing songs like Rawhide and Everybody Needs Somebody to Love. After Sweet Home Chicago, they wouldn't be able to ask us to leave. It didn't happen because I wasn't around for the next few Halloweens, and that's one of my biggest regrets. Many people know that when Dan Aykroyd was writing the script for Ghostbusters, the role of Peter Venkman was originally supposed to be played by Belushi. But after he died, the script had to be rewritten, and Bill Murray stepped in to take the role. I think I have an idea of how Aykroyd must have felt when he received a phone call from Belushi's wife informing him of what had happened to his friend. I write for the student paper across the street at CC, but I also like to write creatively when I can. Everything I have ever written creatively, whether it was a short story, movie idea, or the play I wrote less than 3 months ago, Scott was the only person I ever had in mind to play the lead. I never thought of anyone else in the role, no matter what the character was like, because no matter what, Scott could pull it off. A handful of us, we always talked about making movies someday, and I always said Scott would be our leading man no matter what. Scott Arkowitz, my Juliet Jake, my John Belushi, was and always will be my muse.
Hi, my name is Avery, and I first met Scotty at Camp Henry. Along with Kim Tate right over there, we were affectionately known as Scavery. Although Scotty and I, since we both lived in Grand Rapids, we'd sometimes spell Scavery with the C. I have here a letter he wrote to me at camp in 2007, which I think y'all get a kick out of. Avery. I was sitting around trying to think of a clever theme to the letter I was going to write you to brighten up your stay at Camp Henry a little bit, just to get a warm, fuzzy feeling inside when I imagined the smile I brought to your face from just a letter. I thought of a good idea all of a sudden, and it came to me in a dream. All of a sudden, I was like, I got it, a love letter. So, AJ Grant, here is a U.S. Grade A Scott Arkowitz Ultra Supreme homemade love letter just for you. This isn't my first time writing one of these, so if it ends up being really good, you'll know why. Avery, what is there to say about my stars in the sky, about my foaming sea below, about my princess waiting for her prince in shining armor in a dark, lonely tower filled with sorrow and agony? Your hair is like glistening silk found in the deepest reaches of Asia. Your breasts are like two voluptuous pillows handcrafted by God with my desires in mind. Avery, despite the fact that your ass does not please me as much as Kim Tate's ass might, you make up for it with your perky personality and an overwhelming desire to experiment with me sexually. I love you, Avery Grant. When I wrap my arms around you tight, I never want the moment to end. While you are at camp, I cannot stop thinking about you and your giant boobs of monstrous proportion. Well, actually, I think more about those than I actually think of you, no offense. I want to be your everything, your charming prince, and love you endlessly without boundaries. Love, Scotty. P.S. I'm horny.
Well, that's a tough act to follow, but I suppose I'll try my best. For anybody that doesn't know me, my name's Jesse. I was a good friend of Scotty growing up. Thank you all for joining us to celebrate the life of our dear friend Scott. I cannot think of a better group of people to spend this moment with. Although many of us are at a loss for words, including myself, there are so many undeniably amazing things to be said about Scotty. His energetic nature, coupled with his often overwhelming sense of humor, provided the backdrop for one of the most entertaining and spontaneous friendships I will ever experience. He taught me the importance of never taking life too seriously, which often meant laughing at myself, whether I was in the mood to or not. Each of us have a unique story to tell about Scott. Having gone through a lot of hard times with him, my story primarily consists of hope, perseverance, and companionship. We laughed together, played music together, broke the rules together, and subsequently got in a lot of trouble together. When facing adversity, Scott helped me remain positive in situations which would have otherwise crippled me. It taught me a lot about who I am and what I can accomplish if I remain passionately curious about the world around me. A concept Scott lived by day in and day out. Today, I remain thankful for the adversity we face together, even if it is far from the norm. From our high school marching band days to our Jim Morrison poetry sessions, there was never a dull moment. Not known for our exceptional academics, Scotty and I often made jokes about turning in homework so poorly written that our teachers would have no choice but to laugh hysterically and award us a good grade. Sadly, the joke never worked out in our favor, and if there are any of our former teachers in here, I sincerely apologize for any of that. For those that knew Scott well, we remember him as a person who downplayed his talents often. For starters, one cannot even mention his name without making note of his incredible sense of humor. It didn't matter if Scott was in a room with senior citizens or a bunch of children. He was able to capture the eye of his audience and create lifelong memories that nobody will ever forget. Scott was also born with a talent for accepting others. His passion for inclusion was undoubtedly mature beyond his years, a quality that very few young people possess. And last but not least, Scott loved culture. Whether it was watching movies, rapping to Bone Thugs in the car, Scotty had everything memorized. There's no denying that Scott had a significant impact on each and every person in this room, along with 1,000 more that couldn't make it today. Although we are deeply saddened by his passing, it is important to keep in mind just how much of a difference Scotty made in all of our lives. He will be missed, but he will never be forgotten.
Hi, I'm Brendan Byrne, and Skeets is what I referred to Scott as. It all started first grade. Me and this kid had the big kid desks, and he came along with an energetic, skinny, rambunctious little sidekick named Scott Arkovitz. His freshman year in high school, we kind of rekindled our relationship as far as, elementary school. We were digging through all my old paperwork, digging through everything that I had saved, and we found a letter that he wrote to me in first grade saying, "I like you. You are strong, and you are my friend." And there was misspellings on there as well, which I'm on there. Between the lava books that he gave me in third grade, between Pokemon cards, fireworks, System of a Down, brownies and Blitz, picking on Corey together was a favorite pastime. Our radio productions, our after-school mishaps, and the occasional lighting me on fire. We shaped each other's lives for the good and the bad. It's obviously tough to be here, but it's awesome to see everyone together. I can honestly say Scott's one of the only people that I've actually been in pain of laughing so hard with Scott, which I'm sure everyone can attest to. There's nothing that can be said that's going to fix this awful thing that happened. I've grown to love Scott, his family, his personality. My heart goes out to everyone that's been touched by Scott. I know mine has. When a child buries a parent, they bury the past. When a parent buries a child, they bury the future. Scott had always had a future. There's no amount of words that can sum up Scott in 3 minutes. There's no amount that can sum up any individual. There's no way in hell to sum up Scott in 3 minutes. We've lost a great one. Lori, Haley, Eric, Stu, love you guys, love Scott.
I'm Corey.
So it's really hard to write something, and everyone has done a beautiful job, and I didn't really know what to write. I'll give it a go, I guess. So many a good argument is ruined by some fool who knows what they're talking about. That's a Marshall McLuhan quote, for those who know who Marshall McLuhan is. But Scotty studied a lot of Marshall McLuhan stuff at the end of his education. But Scotty was our beautiful fool, never hesitant to step in and call us out on our imperfections, our lack of being a good friend, our capability of using words correctly, our sense of the bigger picture. Haley the other day mentioned to me that Scotty had recently, and shockingly, just learned what the word nostalgia meant, which really was very shocking that he didn't know. And that's a big word. He would have wanted me to shut up by now, probably, but so the point I'm trying to make is that everyone here has a story. Everyone here has a song, a movie, a moment, a Pokemon card, a dance, and a smell that we remember from Scotty Boy. We all have a spiritual tie with Scotty. He's the most approachable, loving, honest person I will ever know. And that is, even if that honesty is, are you balding? Or like, hey man, you've been putting on some weight. Thank you. So let's not be sad, let's smile, let's laugh and enjoy the memories. Word though.
I do want everyone to try and remember, when Scott walks into a room, he changes the atmosphere. He was the life of the party, he was everything. He was Scott. Remember the comedian, remember the brother, remember the son, and my best friend, Scott.
I want to thank all of you for being here. I don't know if I'll see all of you eventually before this all breaks apart, but it means a lot that you're here for us. And I can feel the love in the air, and we're grateful for that. Everyone that's spoken so far, I know we're grateful for that too. I say we, I mean sort of all of us collectively, but certainly most specifically Lori and Haley and Eric and me. But what can I say? The thanks is not really given justice verbally, but rather right here. And That's why I don't really have anything to talk about, because we all know in situations like this that words do fail. They just do. And yet, even when we know better, just like I might have asked Lori this morning, so how you doing? What silly little questions, right? But we still do it. And because words fail, especially when you're feeling like in that beginning phase of grief, and you don't want to over-anticipate what's ahead, but I've found, I guess in my older days, that prayer is really helpful. And I have, I guess, discovered a deeper sense of prayer through some of my favorite romantic poets from the early 19th century. And John Keats's odes were written 2 years before he died of TB at the age of just over 25. And he knew he was going to die when he wrote these odes. And I sort of got more intimate with Ode to a Nightingale, which I hope most of you have by way of insert. And I had only just been practicing it and playing with it in the last 6 weeks, and did not anticipate that it would serve as such a fitting example of an expression of emotion. So I'll only say, before I chant the poem, that it's not really about understanding it, it's about feeling it. So this doesn't explain anything about Scott. It sort of speaks to all of us in our moment, and it speaks to Scott as well. So I'll try to quit yapping and get to it. And if you do have the words, please do follow around. It's more of a sound thing than a visual thing. Ode to a Nightingale. My heart aches, and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though of hemlock I had drunk, or some dull opiate emptied to the drains 1 minute past, and lethe words had sunk. 'Tis not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thine happiness, that thou, light winged dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of beechen green and shadows numberless, singest of summer in full-throated ease. Oh, for a draught of vintage that hath been cooled long age in the deep delved earth, tasting of flora and the country green, dance and provincial song and sunburnt mirth. Oh, for a beaker full of the warm south, full of the true, the blushful Hippocrene, with beaded bubbles winking at the brim and purple-stained mouth, that I might drink and leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest dim. Fade far away, dissolve, and quite forget what thou amongst the leaves hast never known, the weariness, the fever, and the fret, here where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few sad last gray hairs, where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies, where but to think is to be full of sorrow and leaden-eyed despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or new love pineth them beyond tomorrow. Away, away, for I will fly to thee, not charioted by Bacchus and his bards, but on the viewless wings of poesy, though the dull brain perplexes and retards. Already with thee, tender is the night, and haply the queen moon is on her throne, clustered round by all her starry fays. But here there is no light, save what from heaven is with the breezes blown through verdurous glooms and winding mossy ways. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, nor what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness guess each sweet wherewith the seasonable month endows the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild, white hawthorn and the pastoral eglantine, fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid-May's eldest child, the coming musk rose, full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of flies on summer eves. Darkling, I listen, and for many a time I've been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many a mused rhyme to take into the air my quiet breath. Now more than ever seems it rich to die, to cease upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Still wouldst thou sing, and I have ears in vain, to thy high requiem become a sod. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird, no hungry generations tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown, perhaps the self-same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth, when, sick for home, she stood in tears amid the alien corn. The same that ofttimes at charmed magic casements, opening on the foam of perilous seas and fairy lands forlorn. Forlorn, the very word is like a bell to toll me back from thee to my soul self. Adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well as she is fain to do, deceiving elf. Adieu, adieu. Thy plaintive anthem fades past the near meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and now 'tis buried deep in the next valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music. Do I wake or sleep? Thank you.
I had the honor back in 2003 of blessing Scott as he became a bar mitzvah. I had the honor back in 2006 of blessing Scott as he celebrated with his classmates their confirmation. I didn't think I would have this opportunity to offer these two prayers we say to members of the Jewish community who pass away. I ask everyone to please rise. El malei rachamim, shochein bamromim, Hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, im kadoshim utorim kazohar harakia mazirim, et nishmat Yosef Gershom, ben Shraga Yaakov, shehalach l'olamo, Baal rachamim yastirehu beseter kenafav leolamim. Vaitror bitror hachaim et nishmato. Adonai hu nachalato. V'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our beloved Scott, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. Let us say together, Amen. And we praise God as we lose our loved ones. We praise God through a prayer called Kaddish, a prayer that allows us to give thanks for those that we have loved and those that we have lost. In his memory, we say this prayer that we have said for so many who have passed. We say, Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, mi'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudasha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yolma v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shamaya v'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'yimeru. We say together, Amen. And I say, may God grant peace to this family whose pain is so deep, and to all those who mourn. May God comfort us all the bereaved among us.
You are invited to join the family in the fellowship hall for a time of refreshment. Just make a left and another left as you leave. Take the vibrant and joyous spirit of Scotty with you and love all. In their joy and in their darkness, love all. Go in peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the chocolate room. Hold your breath. Make a wish. Count to 3. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. paradise. Simply look around and view it. Anything you want to, do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. No life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there you'll be free if you truly wish to be. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to, do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly